Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Unit 8 project, which is actually secretly a continuation of our Unit 7 project. You'll see all about that. Let's actually take it back to our do now. So we're going to start by practicing some conditionals, which is what we covered in Unit 8 before we get to our project. So here is our do now. So you can see task 1 says modify the H1 tag in your HTML to ask a question of your choice. So you can look in your HTML and see where the H1 tag is, and then change that question to be some question that you would like to know the answer to. Then in task 2, you're going to be using console.log to see if the user is submitting the correct response. And then in task 3, you're going to write some jQuery so that the user will get the right response based on whether their answer is correct or incorrect. We did a lot of that in lessons 8.1 through 8.3. So take 3 minutes now to do that. You can pause and then unpause when you're ready to go. Hey, you're back. You finished your do now. That's so exciting. Just FYI, if you are not pausing your video when I tell you to pause, you're going to see some really stellar transitions. So just get really excited. Cool. So here is my personal do now. So task 1 said modify the H1 tag in the HTML to ask a question of your choice. So I modified this to be which animal is the best animal? Obviously, I know the answer to this question, and I have console.log down here in my response for task 2. But before we get there, I set up, right, before my click function, I created the variable answer, and I set that equal to a wombat because a wombat is the best animal. So you can see that when we console.log this, you can see that the user is submitting a wombat, just like I want them to. Yeah, so like you can see here, I set up my conditionals like it asks in task 3. If the response, which is the variable holding whatever the user puts in this field, if response is equal to, and remember that in conditionals, in order for something to be equal to something, you have to use 3 equal signs, so equals, equals, equals. If response equals, equals, equals a wombat, then the paragraph, you can see that in line 11 of our HTML. The paragraph text is going to update to say, yes, that's right, wombats are the best, right? Yes. Else, so if they put in anything other than the right answer, which is a wombat, they're going to see cats. That is not the best animal. Please try again. Yeah, so here's my do now. I hope yours looks something like it and involves more wombats than it does cats. And now we're going to move on to our project. All right, we completed our do now. This is day 1 of our project. This will be a 2-day project. So let's see what we're going to do. We're going to use conditional statements like we just did in our do now and like we've been doing in units 8.1 through lessons 8.1 through 8.3. And we're going to add to our character quizzes that we made in Unit 7. So that's why I was saying this is a continuation of our last project. So in Unit 8, we created basic if-else statements, and then we created conditional statements with multiple conditions using else if, and then we created compound conditional statements with our and or operators. Yes, so we are going to add to our character quiz. This is a sample of a character quiz that you might have done. And now we're going to use conditions to change things up in that quiz. So take a second and pull up your Unit 7 project. You should have that saved, or you can find what you submitted in Google Classroom. And just take a look at it and think to yourself how we might use conditional statements to make the project better. more interactive, yeah, more specific to the user. So pause this video, take a look at your Unit 7 project, and come back when you're ready to move on. All right, you took a look at your Unit 7 project and you're ready to move on. So we are going to plan an example of how we're going to add conditions to our Unit 7 character quiz. So you're going to have a project planning document. Here is an example. It looks like this. You're putting your name on it, and potentially the name of your partner. That would be really helpful. But your PM should tell you exactly what you need to do. And we're using conditional statements to add to our character quiz. Yeah. So we're going to start with this chart here, where we're talking about what is this web page about, what are the possible results, and then what questions will you use to get those results. So taking a look at our slides, we have that same table here. So an example might be, which Mario character are you? Yeah. Again, you don't need to create this same thing. You already have your Unit 7 project, so you should already have determined kind of the theme of your project. So if this were my project, some possible answers might be Mario, Luigi, maybe Bowser, maybe Koopa. And one question might be, how old are you? And your answer could either be, well, I'm over 18 or I'm under 18. Yeah. Another question might be, which color do you prefer, red or green? And your answers could be red or green. Again, this is just an example. You have already created something like this for Unit 7. So now you have to think, okay, what are the possible combinations of answers, right? Because you have 2 questions, each with 2 possible answers. So how many combinations might there be? So let's check it out. So remember that one of the questions is, which color do you prefer? And the other questions are, how old are you? Yeah. So combo 1 is, maybe you prefer red and you're under 18, or maybe you prefer green and you're under 18. Yeah. You could prefer red and be over 18, and you could prefer green and be over 18. So it looks like you have 4 possible answers, and you need a character for each of those. So for the first one, you might say, okay, that means you're Bowser. If you're green and you're under 18, that means you're Koopa. If you are red and over 18, that's Mario. And if you prefer green and you're over 18, then you would be Luigi. And I think this might have something to do with the color of their outfits, maybe. You definitely want your answers to make sense or to provide some sort of explanation. When you tell your user, hey, you're Bowser, you want to tell them why that makes them Bowser. Yeah. Awesome. So we're going to start some project time. Yeah. So you're going to use this chunk of time to actually take a look at that planning doc and start plotting things out. Yeah, so you're going to answer some questions here, like we just looked at, question 1 and question 2. You're also going to take a look at the pseudocode and start writing that. And then at the end of all that, you'll want to take a look at the rubric and make sure you have everything on this list, right? So correct HTML tags, etc., input.val, etc. Yeah. So these are the things that you need to have in order to do well on this project. Yeah. So you're going to take 10 minutes and do these 3 things. Do questions 1 and 2, do your JavaScript pseudocode, and review the rubric. So pause the video, come back when you're done doing those things. All right, I think you must be back. So now that you have figured out all of those things for your character quiz, we're going to figure out how you and your partner are going to pair program during the project. Remember, we have a navigator, and that person is kind of planning the next step and reviewing the code. And then we have the driver, and the driver is actually doing the coding, right? Like typing out what the navigator wants to happen. And it's important that we be switching off throughout the process. Yeah. All right. So now you're going to take a look and complete the scrolling down. Oh no, it's scrolling up. It's here. This is the pair programming chart, right? So depending on the section of your project, who's going to drive and who's going to navigate. Cool. So let's take a few minutes and figure that out. Since you are reviewing this asynchronously, it might mean that you reach out to your partner and you all find a time and figure this out a bit later. So it's up to you if you want to pause and do this kind of live with your partner, even though you're not in class, or if you want to come back to this later, up to you. If you're pausing, pause now, and we'll see you in a minute. All right, you're back. So it's time to start coding. So you're going to focus on your conditional statements and then go from there using your project plan, right? So you are actually writing code based on the pseudocode that you created for yourself. Just a reminder, when you are working asynchronously, you can do a modified version of this slide. So you can check back at previous slides. You can review other videos in this series or Unit 7 videos, since we're also using things that we learned in Unit 7. And then you can turn to your reference table, you can Google things, you can text or message your classmates, especially your partner in this case. And then if you absolutely can't figure it out, definitely leave a comment or question for your volunteers so someone can help you. So happy coding, and you can come back when you're done. All right, seems like you might be done. So we're gonna close today. Just go through the rubric and check off what you have accomplished during this project. Super important that you keep going back to that rubric and just check what have you done and what still needs to be done, because when we come back for day 2, you're gonna start by looking at what still needs to be done so you can make sure you get it all done by the end of that work time. Awesome. Thanks, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow for day 2.